complete history of America, from colonies to superpower. The United States of America, a land known for freedom, innovation, diversity, and global influence. But how did it rise from a land of native nations to a global superpower? In this deep dive, we explore America's entire history. 1. Indigenous America, before 1492. Long before European settlers, the land we now call the United States was home to millions of indigenous peoples. Tribes such as the Iroquois, Apache, Sioux, Cherokee, Navajo, and hundreds more developed complex societies. They had their own languages, belief systems. The Iroquois Confederacy in the Northeast operated under a sophisticated democratic system. The Mississippian culture built massive earthworks in cities like Cahokia. On the plains, nomadic tribes followed buffalo migrations, while in the Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans constructed cliff dwellings and intricate irrigation systems. Life revolved around nature, community, and balance. But everything changed in 1492. 2. European colonization, 1492 to 1607. In 1492, Christopher Columbus's voyage opened the floodgates for European exploration. The Spanish established colonies in the Caribbean, Mexico, and Florida. They brought diseases like smallpox, which devastated native populations. By the early 1600s, the French controlled parts of Canada and the Mississippi River. The Dutch settled in what is now New York, then New Amsterdam, and the British began exploring the Atlantic coast. This era brought conflict, cultural exchange, but superior European weaponry and diseases decimated their resistance. 3. The 13 colonies and British rule, 1607 to 1776. In 1607, the British established Jamestown in Virginia. Over the next century, 13 colonies formed, each with distinct cultures, economies, and religions. Britain taxed the colonies heavily to pay off war debts, enforcing laws like the Stamp Act and the Tea Act without colonial representation. Tensions rose. Colonists began to demand independence. The slogan, "No taxation without representation," echoed through the streets. Resistance turned to rebellion. 4. The American Revolution, 1775-1783. In 1775, war broke out between Britain and the colonies. On July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed, authored by Thomas Jefferson. The war raged for 8 years. Despite initial struggles, the colonists, with help from France, defeated the British. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 officially ended the war, and the United States was born. This was a radical experiment, a democracy built on Enlightenment ideals, but still flawed by slavery and the exclusion of women and non-whites. 5. Building a new nation, 1783 to 1860. In 1787, the U.S. Constitution was adopted. George Washington became the first president. The Bill of Rights guaranteed individual freedoms. The nation expanded rapidly. The Louisiana Purchase, 1803, the Lewis and Clark Expedition, and westward expansion brought settlers across the continent. However, Native Americans were pushed off their lands through war and forced removal. The economy boomed, but slavery remained deeply entrenched, especially in the South. By 1860, the nation was divided over slavery, states' rights, and the balance of power between federal and state governments. 6. The Civil War and Reconstruction, 1861 to 1877. In 1861, the Civil War began after Southern states seceded to preserve slavery. The Union, North, fought to preserve the nation. The Confederacy, South, killing over 600,000 Americans. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing slaves in Confederate states. The Union won in 1865. Lincoln was assassinated days later. Reconstruction followed. Slavery was abolished. 13th Amendment. And African Americans gained citizenship and voting rights. The KKK rose and Southern states imposed Jim Crow laws. 7. Industrialization and the Gilded Age, 1877-1900. Post-war America industrialized rapidly. Railroads connected the country, steel, oil, and banking empires rose. Immigrants poured in seeking opportunity. Cities boomed, but working conditions were harsh. Child labor, poor wages, and unsafe factories led to labor movements. Wealth inequality exploded. Corruption in politics, machine politics. Despite challenges, this era set the stage for modern America's economy and infrastructure. 8. The World Wars and Great Depression, 1914-1945. The U.S. stayed neutral during World War I until 1917. After joining the Allies, American troops helped end the war. The 1920s brought economic growth. The Great Depression began. Millions lost jobs, homes, and hope. President Franklin D. Roosevelt introduced the New Deal, programs to revive the economy. In 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The U.S. entered World War II. American industry powered the Allied victory. After the war, America emerged as one of two global superpowers, alongside the Soviet Union. Number 9. The Cold War and Civil Rights Era, 1945-1991. The Cold War was a battle of ideologies, democracy versus communism. The US and USSR engaged in an arms race, space race, and proxy wars in Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. Domestically, the civil rights movement fought segregation. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and others demanded justice. Laws like the Civil Rights Act, 1964, and Voting Rights Act, 1965. The Cold War ended in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Number 10. Modern America and Global Influence, 1991 present. The 1990s brought economic growth and tech innovation. The internet transformed life. After 9/11, the U.S. launched wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Political polarization grew. Social movements like Black Lives Matter, #MeToo, and climate activism, but challenges remain. Inequality, gun violence. The U.S. remains a symbol of resilience, reinvention, and influence.